Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how to use the batch rename tool on your Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 2,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There, you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now, if you want to rename a single file on your Mac, you can do that pretty easily by simply selecting the file. If you click on it a second time or press the return key, it enters rename mode and you can type a new name. You could also, with a file selected, go to File and then Rename, and it enters that same rename mode. But what if you want to batch rename some files? You want to change all of their names, maybe adding something to them or numbering them. Well, you can do that using the same menu item. The trick is to first select multiple files. So here in List View, I can click to select this first file here and then Shift click to select more. I can even Command click to select or deselect others. Or alternatively, if I just want to rename all the files in this folder, I can use Command A or Edit Select All to select all the files. Now that I have multiple files selected, I can use the batch rename tool by going to File, and notice that Rename now has 3 dots after it. That means that a dialog is going to appear if I select this. It won't just do something on its own. And if I use it, you can see I get to the Rename Finder Items tool or the Batch Rename tool. Now there are 3 modes for the Batch Rename tool. There's Replace Text, Add Text, and Format. Let's start with the simplest, Replace Text. It has 2 fields here, Find and Replace With. So I can find some text that may be in one or more of these file names and replace it with something else. So for instance, I can type photo and then replace with picture. And notice here it gives me an example. It shows that one of these files will be renamed as picture1.jpg. So I get an idea of what's going to happen. And notice that these files are different. They have different numbers after them. They've got different extensions. Here's one that's HEIC. But in all of them that are selected, it's going to change the word photo to the word picture. So if I click rename, you can see it changes all of them there. Now there are a lot of tricks you can do with this. For instance, you can add spaces. So I can look for photo, replace with picture, plus a space. And you can see how I got a nice little space there. I could also look for extensions instead. So let's say if I want to change .jpeg to .jpg, I can do that and it will change those. But the ones that don't have it in it, it won't make any change at all. So look at the HEIC file there and you can see that doesn't change. Now before we move on to the next mode, I want to show you that you can undo a batch rename like this. So even though I've made multiple changes here, I can simply use Edit, Undo, or Command Z, and you can see how it undoes the batch rename. So as long as you do that immediately afterwards, you can fix a mistake. If you thought you were changing it to one thing and then you realize it made a mistake and it changed hundreds of files, Command Z will take you back to how they all were named before. Now let's look at the next mode. The next mode is Add Text. So this simply adds some text to the existing name. So right now it's blank and you could see as an example it shows photo1.jpg, this first file right there. If I were to add something like my, you could see how it would change it. It would put the word my afterwards. Or I could switch to before. And then I could add, say, a space right there. So you can see how I could add my space to the beginning of each one of those. So I can rename like that. Now let's look at the last mode, Format. So what Format will do is either replace the name or add something to the name. So the first thing you need to decide is the type of format. You can have name and index, name and counter, or name and date. So name and index puts a number after the file name. So here's the custom format is the word file with a space after it. And you can see it's going to put an index. So file space 1.jpg. I could switch to have the format go before the name. So it puts the 1 before the word file. And I can have the number start at something else. So I can have them start, say, at 100 like this, or maybe better yet, 101. Now if I rename, notice how it changes all of them. And it does it for all the files, keeping their file extension. So now I start with file 101 and I continue on. It's not taking anything from the old name. So these files could have been A, B, C, and D, and now they'd be called file 101 to file 104. Now note you can change custom format to whatever you want. So I can put, say, picture, and I've still got that space after there like that. If I were to eliminate this, not have anything there, it keeps the file name that's there now. So the first one will be photo1 space 1. If I rename, you can see it keeps all the original names, adds a space, and then the format or the index in this case. Now the next name format option is name a counter, which puts a bunch of zeros before the number. Now on Macs you don't really need to have all the zeros before in order for things to be sorted correctly in the Finder. But some other devices might, like maybe you're making a USB stick of these photos to show them on some TV that you can plug a USB stick in and then it will list the photos. And you find that it works better if you pad a bunch of zeros to it. So you have the ability to do that. And the last format here is name and date. So it's going to put a date format like this afterwards. Unfortunately, this is not very useful as it's giving all the files the same name because it's using the current time right now, not the creation or modified time for the file. So it really has limited use. Maybe if you had a folder filled with a bunch of different types of files and you wanted to rename all those with the current time right now for archiving. Now here's a tip that most people don't know. You can rename files using an index and set it to a specific order by selecting the files in that order. So for instance, let's say I want to take the first 4 photos here. Make it easier to see, I'm going to go to View Options and enlarge the icons there like that. So now I want this to be the first photo, this to be the second, third, and fourth photo like that. So the opposite order. So all I need to do is select the first one, then Command click to select the second, then Command click on the third, and Command click on the fourth. I could do it in any order I want. So I can, add another one here as the fifth if I want. Now I want to go to File, Rename, and I want to use the format, name and index. I'll start at 1 in this case, and I'm going to give it a new name. I don't want to go and use photo because as it renamed each one, it's going to conflict with ones that were before. In other words, when it tries to rename photo 4 to photo 1, it's going to see photo 1's already there and it's not going to work as you would expect. So instead, I'm going to say picture and give it a space afterwards. Well, now I'm going to rename like that. And now alphabetically, picture comes after photo, and I could see it's renamed them all picture 1 to picture 4, but it's done it in the order in which I selected them, not the order they were listed here in the Finder. So batch rename can also be a handy way to manually reorder files in a folder. So this is a pretty basic batch rename tool. It's very useful in a lot of cases, but for more complex things, you're going to either have to use the terminal or perhaps a shortcut. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.